This is the Hori Fighting Commander Octa for the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, PC. Just going over the packaging real quick. So everything is blue and white like the PlayStation logo. There is a photograph of the controller up front. It does say it's an officially licensed product. PlayStation logo, Hori logo. There are some images on the side because this is the Japanese version. All the text is in Japanese. It says here PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, and PC. Then on the back, you've got the different functions of the controller. I kind of like how bare bones this box is. So all it really is the controller. So it's in this little baggie, and you just take it out. And there you have it. So as I get on with the review, I will be comparing it a lot to the Razer Raion. They're essentially the same controller, right? They're for the same purpose. I'll get this mouse out of the way. They're essentially the same controller for the same purpose, right? So it should be hitting the same target market. But the main difference is this is $100. And I think when I got it, it was like 110, something like that. And this is a $50 to $60 controller. So the difference in price is vast. It's significant. What I will be attempting to show you in this review is if the value for money is, more worth it. Which one is more worth it for the price? First, let's start with the physical tour of the Octa. So the plastic itself is actually really good quality, not as premium feeling as the Raion, so it still is very plasticky in a way. The plastic for the bumpers and they're all bumpers, I guess. There are no triggers here. There are no analog triggers. And the front shell, back shell, the buttons themselves, the face buttons, seem to be all the same type of quality plastic. I think the D-pad is a bit more rubbery, and the stick itself is a bit more rubbery than the rest of them, but yeah, fairly good quality plastic all around. The cable is, I think, 3 meters long, a hefty long cable, a pretty good length. So if you are bringing this to tournaments or whatever, you wouldn't have a problem reaching whatever you have to plug it into. It's about as long as any standard arcade stick. So like the Raion, this is a fight pad. It is specifically designed for fighting games, more specifically 6-button fighting games. So essentially just Street Fighter. You have your 4 face buttons here, which is common to all PlayStation controllers. And you've got R1, R2. Up here is L1, L2, R3, L3. Now, on the Raion, there is a way to switch that function. I think it's down here. What you can do on the Raion is to turn these buttons into L1, L2, R1, R2, conventionally, or switch it to my preferred, which is actually by default the settings for the Hori Fighting Commander Octa, to make this L1, L2, L3, R3, right? So by default, this already has my preferred settings. The thing is, if you prefer it the way the Raion comes with, the settings that the Raion comes with, you have to download the software to be able to change it. But yes, you can change it. The problem is you can't change it on the fly. So you'd have to go through the software to do that. You can remap buttons through the software. What else? So you've got your create button here, you've got your options button here, you've got a trackpad. It's a working trackpad. It also doubles as a button. So usually this is used for resetting training mode. Home button, and you've got your mute and your function button. And you've got 3 lights, which indicates muting, locking, and when you are doing some... Actually, wait. You can change these functions on the fly without going through the software, but it's clunky because you have to use the function button. Anyway, I don't want to look up the manual right now, but there is a way to remap your buttons on the fly. It just takes a long time. By holding this down for 3 seconds, pressing a button, then pressing the button you want to remap it to, something like that. I'll probably write it down somewhere on the screen. But yeah, that's what this button is for. It's signified by a little cog right there. So the mute button is used because there is a 3.5mm jack for your headphones and your headsets. So you can mute it this way. Then the lock button here is to tell you whether your controller is locked or not. Now it is essentially the same as tournament mode on the Raion. So when you press these two buttons, the light here turns white or green. Like it's either white or green, but like one indicates a locked mode, the other indicates that it's not locked. So what locked mode is for when you bring this to tournaments and when you're in a match and you accidentally hit the home button or the options button, you are immediately you automatically lose that game, right? Because that's like pausing or something like that. It's against the rules. So to be able to avoid that kind of mishap, you can lock it. It's on the back. There are 3 types of locks. So right now it's unlocked. Okay, it's unlocked. Then the middle lock locks, I think, just the home button, and the far right lock locks both the home button and the options button. So you can't possibly, and the create button, it also locks the create button. So you can't possibly get disqualified for messing up and pressing something you shouldn't be pressing. Also on the back, you've got a way to switch from PS5, PS4, and PC. And I did try this on PS5, and yeah, it works flawlessly, no problem. The headphone jack also works for PS5. I think it only works for PS5. I don't think the PC, that's for in the same case for the Raion, right? So the 3.5mm jack on the Raion only works when you're connected to the PlayStation. I didn't get to test this, but I assume it's the same. And you've got your D-pad and your analog stick. All right, so let's talk about the analog stick first. So the analog stick is special because there is an octagonal gate. You could actually see it, right? And you could hear it. There's an octagonal gate on the stick. The octagonal gate is cool, right, when you're actually using a fight stick, but that's because you don't have a D-pad on a fight stick. Now, anyone who plays fighting games on a pad usually prefers the D-pad. And I don't know anyone, I don't think I've ever seen anyone play with the analog stick if the D-pad is an option for fighting games, at least. But I tried it out. Like I could get, supers, Shoryu, DP, dash up 360 with this, no problem. I didn't try electrics with it. I should have tried electrics with it. I tried electrics with this thing. More about that later. So it actually works. I'm not sure how entirely viable it is, but it's pretty cool, right? So you could feel yourself hitting an edge or a corner when you're charging down back, or when you're doing a DP. You could actually just slide it into this predetermined octagonal corners, and that's what really it's for. As for the directional pad, it's not the best. Like, it's good, but not the best. So when I'm going back and forth, when I'm shimmying in Street Fighter, sometimes I would, actually not sometimes, more often than I'd like, jump by accident, which has actually cost me quite a few games, because instead of back and forth shimmy trying to get in, because I play Kami, I've been playing Kami a lot, so I've been trying to get in, but instead of just walking forward, I jump. So that's a problem. Good thing that the software actually lets you change the sensitivity of the D-pad. So unlike the Raion, so what the Raion has is on each direction there is a micro switch. The same micro switches well, not the same, I don't know if they're exactly the same, but they feel the same, they sound the same. There are 8 micro switches on the Raion, so every direction, right, has a corresponding micro switch. Now that has its advantages, also it has its disadvantages. The Octa has 4 traditional D-pad. But you can change the sensitivity even of the diagonals. So if you put the sensitivity of the diagonals to the lowest setting it can possibly go, you can't possibly hit diagonals by accident. You'd have to really, really press hard on these diagonals to get them to fire. And diagonal is essentially activating two directions at once, right? So it's up, back, up, forward, etc. But when you bring it down to like the minimum sensitivity, it's actually very hard to press. So I bring it down to like halfway, and it did alleviate some of my accidental jumping, which is fantastic. But yes, the D-pad is still good, right? You could do run up 360 or dash 360. You could do headbutting to 720 with Zangief easily on this D-pad. As for electrics, I tried it with both maximum sensitivity on the diagonals and with my preferred setting for Street Fighter, and I just have a super hard time with electrics. The thing is, I suck at electrics. I'm not a Kazuya player. I already have a hard time with electrics, and I have an even harder time with this thing. And I think it's because of the shape of the D-pad, right? So it's essentially a cross on top of a circle, right? There is physical contact with the diagonals, like in between these, in the spaces of the cross, I would say, the plus sign. So I don't know, you can get, I'm sure someone can get good with this 100%. It's just, you know, not me. It's a personal thing. I have a hard time figuring out with my fingers when I've hit the diagonal with this thing. At least enough to time it exactly with the triangle or the two, right? So the electrics, for me, hard, but I'm 100% confident that someone will be able to do it, no problem. What else? Oh, the buttons. Okay, man, I've been rambling. This is a long video. I'm so sorry. So the buttons, they have micro switches, and what that allows you to do is you can finesse the buttons a lot, and you can press it very fast because the travel distance on these buttons, and they're very clicky. You can hear that, right? The travel distance on these buttons is practically negligible, right? It's the slightest touch will actuate these buttons, and that's good. That's good performance-wise, right? Because you want to be able to hit your buttons as fast as possible if you want to be as competitive as possible. But they don't feel great. Because I feel like, and this is a personal preference, right? I feel like the finesse that these micro switches give you should be in the D-pad, exactly like the Raion. I think movement requires a lot of finesse, and I think the micro switches give you that. For the buttons, I would rather, or rather, I prefer the buttons of the Raion, where you can smack them. Buttons, you should be able to smack your buttons. They actuate farther for sure. Like the travel distance on these buttons, definitely much farther. But it feels better to just smack. And when you're playing a fighting game, you want to smack these things, either out of frustration or excitement. It doesn't feel as good smacking the Octa because of the micro switches. So, you know, take that for, you know, however you like. Just doesn't feel fantastic. So at 60 bucks versus 120 bucks, if money was no issue, like at all, I would definitely recommend the Razer Raion. It has a better cable for one, same length, but the cable on this thing it doesn't feel great. Probably the same quality, just doesn't feel as great. The plastic on this thing is better. I prefer the layout in terms of where the micro switches went. I think this is just an overall better product, personally, but it's twice the price, almost. If you are someone looking to get into fight pads, and you want to get into fighting games, you don't want to invest too much, you don't want to buy you don't want to deal with the hassle of learning a stick, because there is a learning curve to the stick, 100%, right? 100%. Anytime you change control scheme, there is a learning curve. If you don't want to deal with that and you're used to a pad and you just want to spend 50, 60 bucks, this is fantastic. It is amazing. It will get you the mileage you want from fighting games. Now, there is an argument to be made that most fighting games don't have 6-button layouts anymore. In fact, they're being designed mostly to accommodate controllers, like the traditional 4-button controllers. But games like Street Fighter 6 coming out soon require 6. Well, it doesn't require 6 because you could do the easy controls, but it's better to have 6 so you have fuller control of your character. Games like Guilty Gear Strive, where you can map essentially anything. My big, well, not an issue, I guess, per se, but one of the major complaints I have about this controller, and to an extent the Raion, is the shape. So you see these are handles, right? And they're found in essentially all modern controllers. And what these handles kind of encourage you to do is to hold it conventionally. You can do this, right? You can hold it like an arcade stick and play this like with a pad. But the problem is, if you put this on your lap, this thing starts digging into your thigh, and it's really awkward because you can't really find, like, if it's ideal for your thumb to be rested this way, then this becomes awkward because of this handle. It's the same for the Raion, right? Because it's also designed with handles. The older fighting commanders actually, I think, got it right. There was no handle. There was a handle here because you needed to be able to kind of manipulate this like this, and there was no handle on this side, and that's an older design. I think that's the right design. But yeah, unfortunately we get the handled version for the Octa. If you can deal with that in terms of comfort and your preferred hand style, then yeah, either of these pads is an amazing buy. And I'm really sorry, this is a really long video. So yeah, there you go. That is everything you need to know about the fighting commander Octa by Hori. Now, if you found this video informative or entertaining or whatever, I hope you do drop a like, comment. Please subscribe. I'm almost at 2,000 subs. If I reach 2,000 subs, I'm going to do something, like a giveaway, something cool or something. So yeah, I will catch you guys in the next one.